There were two things I realized that kind of stayed the same no matter where we moved. The first one was math. It seemed like it didn't change. It didn't change.
That is so interesting.
And the second thing that didn't change was the Mass. That never changed, no matter where we were.
People often wonder who we are. Why do we dress this way? What do we do all day? Why do we live this kind of life? What does it mean to be a sister, a priest, a Catholic? We want to help you navigate life through faith to find the truth of God and all His glory, because the truth shall set you free.
Welcome back to Go LE Digital and to our podcast series, The Truth Shall Set You Free, our podcast about religious vocations. Now, if you have been watching this, which I certainly hope that you have been watching, you know a lot of my sisters. Well, you don't yet know this sister. And this sister is so very special. Why is she special? Well, for a lot of reasons, but one of the main reasons that I would really like to share with you, and then we'll eventually get into her story, and I'm really hoping, so you can help with me, that when I ask her to come back for a second one, that she'll do it. But anyway, one of the reasons is because she was born right under the shadow of Our Lady's mantle at Guadalupe in Mexico City. Welcome, Sister Maria Francisco.
Hello, sister. Thank you for having me.
Sister, we have a lot to talk about, so I'm hoping that I can get you back for a second one. But for our first one, sister, I just think it's so special to have been born that close to that beautiful shrine, which St. John Paul the Great, said she is Mother of America, not That's just right. The Americas, but she actually corrected our beloved Cardinal O'Connor, because we were founded under him in New York in 1997. But he referred to her as Mother of the Americas, and the Holy Father corrected him and said, no, she's Mother of America. And that just always means a lot to me. In any case, sister, tell us a little bit about being born in Mexico City, being raised in a 100% Mexican family, just all the things that meant something to you, especially in your faith life growing up in your beautiful family, and how God dealt with all that. Yeah.
Yes, sister. So I was born, like you said, in Mexico City. My dad is from a very small town in Mexico, in Chiapas, southern Mexico. And my mom, she's from Mexico City. And my parents both met in Mexico City when they were studying.
Oh, nice.
But I grew up living with my grandma. We moved in to her house when shortly after I was born, and we always took care of her. And she was always such a good example. She's the one who taught me how to pray. And
is this your mom's mom?
This is my mom's mom, Gloria.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and she, every night before we went to bed, we would. I would go to her room and we'd say our night prayers, and then we go to bed. But she, and I guess all of our family, we lived really close. We lived only a few blocks away from a church run by Dominican priests,
nice.
St. Rose of Lima, and so you could hear the bells. Before Mass and before the Rosary, so you'd always know it was time to pray. But in the month of May, the friars would pray the Rosary they always prayed it every day. But on the month of May, they would have a procession to Our Lady of Guadalupe at each of the rosaries. So after each decade, we'd all have a rose, and we'd process to the side altar of Our Lady of Guadalupe and place a rose on her side altar, and then sing a big song at the end. So it was always we're very devotional in Mexico,
beautiful.
and like you said, we love our mother. So
You surely do. Okay, sister, so being born in Mexico, how long did you live in Mexico? And do you have siblings?
Yes, I have a younger sister. Her name is Maria.
Perfect.
And we actually moved around a lot.
Okay.
So we, when I was 5, my parents and my sister and we moved to England, where my dad was getting his master's. So we lived there for a year.
What was he getting a master's in?
He was getting his master's in economics.
Oh.
Yes.
Did he know English?
Well, he did. He had learned. He taught himself English.
Wow.
Before we moved to England, but it was just through tapes and classes. And
he must be very bright.
He is very smart, and he got an honors master's degree, and he in a different language in a country he'd never been to before.
My goodness.
So I don't know how he did it. With 2 little ones, you know. So I did first grade in England. And once my dad was finished with his master's degree, we moved back to Mexico. I finished elementary school in Mexico. And then when I was 12, we actually moved back to England, a different part of England, for my dad's PhD. So I did 8th grade in England.
What was he studying at this point in time?
At this point, he was getting his PhD in computational finance.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Whatever that might be.
Yeah, I still don't know what it is. Yes. But once he completed his coursework, we moved to Minnesota for his new job.
Back to when you were in England, so Spanish is your first language?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And then when did you learn English?
So I learned English the first time we moved to England when I was 5. And it was
Were you in school?
I was in school. So I did first grade. And I remember going to school and I didn't know a word of English. And I think that's probably, at least for me, that was the best way to learn, because there wasn't anyone who spoke Spanish. And I also think I've heard that if you learn at that age, it's a lot easier.
But did you have any friends? How did you communicate?
Well,
how did you know where to go in the school? At
first, I didn't know sisters because, it was a new school and everyone looked. I was in a classroom, and on my first day, I thought, okay, the way I'm gonna know what classroom I'm in is by that boy who is a redhead, because I'd never seen a redhead in my life.
Really?
So I thought, okay, well, I'll just follow this redhead around, and I'm sure I thought he must be the only one in the school. And so we went to the gym for an assembly, and then I thought I went back to my classroom, but I ended up going to, it was a 5th grade classroom. So the kids, I could tell the kids were a lot older, but I did follow a redhead.
A redhead?
Yes.
The wrong
and
one.
How
funny.
Yes. Eventually the teachers figured it out, and
that is so
they took me back to my classroom.
Funny.
But yes, so there were it was very different from Mexico, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
But it was such a gift to be able to obviously learn the language and experience a new culture.
Wow. So the food was different. The music was different.
Everything was different.
Hair coloring was different.
Yeah, everything. Yes, who would have thought? And I mean, we moved back and forth a lot, but one of the things that my grandma said before we moved was she could tell that we were going to move around a lot in our lives. And she said, you know, the most beautiful flowers are the ones that bloom no matter where they're planted. So she told me that's what you have to do. So no matter where you end up, just bloom and
Isn't
if you do that.
Beautiful? What wise advice.
Yeah. So even if the place, we were planted in all different places, we moved around a lot. But just knowing that it helped with
I would
all
think
of the
so.
changes.
So did you grow up very devout? Wherever you moved, you retained your...
Yes, so that was one of the things. We always went to Mass on Sundays, and that was one of the things that I realized. There were two things I realized that kind of stayed the same no matter where we moved. And the first one had to do with school, and that was math. Because that was the only subject I wasn't behind in all of my classes. Because with history or languages or geography, I had to start all over again. You know, it was different in Mexico, and it was different. Geography is different, and history is different in England, and it's different.
True.
It's different here in the States. So I thought, but math, it seemed like it didn't change. It didn't change.
That is so interesting.
And the second thing that didn't change was the Mass. So even though it was in a different language, even though the people were different, and the second time we lived in England, we would go to Mass at the at my dad's university. It was an on-campus Mass, so it was just a little room that they'd bring an altar and they put a crucifix on the wall. But it wasn't a church. It wasn't, but it was still the same Mass, and I could recognize that was apart from math, that was the one thing. No matter where we lived, that didn't.
So that kind of made you feel at home no matter where you were.
Yes. So no matter where we were, just even if it looked different or the people looked different, even if it wasn't technically in a church, it was still the same Mass, and that never changed, no matter where we were.
And where did you end up by the time you were in high school?
So after my dad finished his coursework for his PhD, we moved to Bloomington, Minnesota. For my dad's job.
Okay.
So I started 8th grade there. So I actually did 1st and 8th grade twice, and I skipped 6th and 7th grade. So age-wise, it worked out. So I was with the same...
That is so funny.
So I did 8th grade through college in Minnesota.
It wasn't hard to skip 6th and 7th grade?
It was hard, yes.
My goodness.
It worked. Age-wise, it worked out. And I think that also was one of the reasons I liked math and science, because even with the skip, it was still... It didn't seem to change as much as the other subjects.
And your faith remained throughout all this. So at this point in time, you're ready to choose a college.
Yes. And so when I always wanted, even back in Mexico, I always wanted to study aerospace engineering.
Interesting. And sister, I have a big question to ask you. The audience is already aware of this, but would you please consent to come back again, because we're almost up for time for this one segment.
Absolutely.
But sister, we haven't even heard how you found your vocation
That's
yet.
right, sister.
But sister, I knew it was going to take longer, and I was hoping that you would say yes, because I really did want to hear your early years in Mexico and how God brought you all over the place. You kept moving. And,
it's true.
And yet it was the Mass, the solidity of the Mass and math
Yes.
that made you feel at home. So, sister, would you consent to come back again?
Absolutely.
Okay, audience, you heard it. I heard it. We will have her back again, okay? And so I really want to thank you for joining us today and to say, isn't Sister Maria Francisco beautiful? And as soon as we come back, or she comes back, you'll get to know the rest of her story, which is also very powerful and very beautiful. So God bless you, and thank you so much.